Welcome to Whiskey Nightcaps, the channel where we do sip before sleep. I am your humble host here every week, Jason Davis. And today we're doing the 101 bourbon battle. So don't you go anywhere, don't you turn a dial, don't you do anything. Don't even breathe, just hold your breath. Okay, before we get started, man, I'm gonna ask a small favor of you. It does not cost you a dime. Please hit that subscribe button if you already haven't. Hit the like button because it does wonders in supporting the channel, and also leave a comment because it helps to push the channel forward, all right? Okay, so today we have two of the biggest brands in whiskey, Wild Turkey and Maker's Mark. Now, when you think about 101 whiskeys, you immediately, unless you're crazy, I don't know what planet you're living on, but if you think about 101 whiskeys, Wild Turkey is what immediately comes to mind. Now, there are some other whiskeys that are 50.5 ABV, but I'm gonna say that Wild Turkey set this thing off, okay? So then I got to thinking to myself, I said, self, what's up with the 101 thing? Like, what is up with that? So I started looking into some things. In my research, I came across a few different answers, but there was only one that really seemed plausible and credible. And I'm gonna have to go with this because the people over at Wild Turkey did not respond to me when I tried to get in contact with them, but I understand that. They're like huge. But the 101 was in response to the popularity of bottled and bond bourbons. Now, we know that bottled and bond means that it must be aged of a minimum of 4 years under government supervision at 50% ABV, which is 100 proof. And that was like the seal of guarantee right there. When you saw bottled and bond, you knew you were getting a quality whiskey. To one up them, they did 50.5% ABV, which is 101 proof. Now, from what I understand, Wild Turkey 101 was an 8-year bourbon. It used to have an 8-year age statement. At this point, it's a non-age statement bourbon, but I understand that it is between 6 and 8 years old. Matured in number 4 charred oak barrels. That number 4 char is a heavy char that's gonna give a lot of that spice, bring a lot of those vanillins out. It says right on the bottle, it says bold. You're gonna get those bold, spicy flavors right up front. Now, the mash bill on this thing is 75% corn, 13% rye, 12% malted barley, so it's considered a high rye bourbon. Now, don't sleep on this bottle over here, because sleep is the cousin to death, as they say. But when you see this red wax, you know what it is. So Maker's Mark is iconic in its own right. It is a huge brand. Now, I have to say, this really isn't like a fair fight in a sense, right? It's not an apples to apples comparison. This is like Biggie versus Tupac, you know, that argument that goes on forever. Both Biggie and Tupac were rappers in a general sense, but in two totally separate genres, so it's hard to compare the two. Yes, both of these are bourbons, but this is a high rye bourbon, and the Maker's Mark is a wheated bourbon. Now, the mash bill on this Maker's Mark is 70% corn, 17% wheat, and 13% malted barley. Now, that flagship bottle of Maker's Mark that you see that has the low ABV, that actually is the one that they prefer to produce, okay? That is intentional. The 101 bourbon was only available on site at the distillery. You could not get this on the shelf anywhere, but they have released it for a limited amount of time. So if you don't have one of these, you probably want to get one for your collection, because it's possible that they may go into the ethers. The Thanos snap. Thanos is gonna snap the Maker's Mark 101 out of existence. All right, so let's get into these challengers and see what is happening today. We have the 101. Nice, beautiful color on that. Like I said, it sits in that number 4 char barrel. Let's go in for the nose. This is a beautiful bourbon on the nose. Did I mention that this is only like $23? Only the huge distilleries that, you know, people don't like because they see them as being the machine, only those distilleries can afford to give you quality bourbon at those kinds of prices. Right up front, you get that barrel and that rye and vanilla. I mean, you get all of it at once. It makes your mouth water. It is so delicious. It is no surprise, and it is no secret that I'm a Wild Turkey fan. Said it before. I have another video where I went through a bunch of their whiskeys and I felt great afterwards. There's also a bit of caramel on the nose. It's a it doesn't smell cheap at all. This is a fantastic bourbon, and I think, or I would hope, that you all already know that. You know, it almost smells like a fresh cola, like when the carbonation is like at its peak and, you know, it's bubbling up, like all of those flavors coming together. It is fantastic. All right, let's see what's up. What's the deal? What's the dealio with this Maker's Mark 101? You know, it still has a nice color to it. Definitely softer on the nose. That's the absence of that rye, which lets the vanilla and that corn shine through a little bit more, because wheat is, you know, is a soft grain. You know, and I've never picked this up on Maker's Mark before, but I'm getting a floral note. Definitely getting a light floral, like you just walked into a flower shop, getting that kind of note on the nose as well. But you have to dig in a little bit further to pull as much out of this 101 versus the Wild Turkey 101. It's approachable. More vanilla. You know, I would just say, just by nosing the two, that you automatically assume that this one is going to be an easier sip. It's good. It's good. Like I said, everything is dialed down a little bit, softer, more pleasant, but the taste tells the tale. So let's give Tupac and Biggie their microphones and see what happens. All right, let's go with this 101. You know, I've had a lot of bourbons and expensive bourbons, but I continue to come back to this 101. This is a bourbon that I keep at the house at all times, no matter what. You know, right up front, you get the vanilla and the buttery caramel, and finish as it's doing that Kentucky hug. It's finishing with that rye and the barrel spice, but not to a point where it's very offensive. It all blends together masterfully. You know, sometimes you have too many notes that are competing with each other. It can be chaotic. This is more like a symphony. I can still feel it pulling down. That's good. That is quality, sir. Hats off. I'm not gonna take my hat off because I haven't brushed my hair, but hats off to the Russell's people. All right, Maker's Mark is up and coming out of the corner. Let's see. Now, surprisingly, you do get a little bit of that barrel spice. I'm getting the vanilla is starting to come up, but it was masked a little bit behind an ethanol kind of taste. There's a little bit of the butterscotch, but more heavier on the vanilla. That's what's being left on the finish. And as I assumed earlier, it is a little bit of an easier sipper. It's good. It's not a bad bourbon, and I actually do like Maker's Mark. I have the Maker's Mark cask strength or barrel proof upstairs that, you know, I probably have almost killed at this point. All right, so we're gonna let those sit for a second, go back in for a second sip, and we will make the final determination, because like Highlander, there can only be one. Uno, numero uno. All right, so we are back and going in for round two. In the words of Apollo Creed, ding, ding. Wild Turkey, baby. Yeah, I'm getting more of that barrel spice and rye combination together, which, like I said, gives it that bold, upfront flavor, but still yet, it's very smooth. You know, it does not have rough edges, and I know there's a misinterpretation of the word smooth in reference to whiskey, because no whiskey truly is smooth. Water is smooth, whiskey is not smooth, but you know what I mean. It does not have those rough edges. It goes down without the bite that certain whiskeys may present. But you know, as that spice fades away, it gives way to the vanilla and that buttery caramel that typically for me, I always pick up on some of the Wild Turkey products like Rare Breed as well. All right, let's go back to this red wax. You know, these are definitely different, definitely distinct. I mean, you know it's bourbon. If you did a blind, you know it's bourbon, but there are different notes there. It's like making a beat two different ways. You know, one is using electrical instruments and the other one's using live instruments. I still get that ethanol on the Maker's Mark. I mean, which is not off-putting. You have that aged roasted corn in there, and it's built with a little bit more of that barrel spiciness. But like I said, not to be confused. Listen, not to be confused with rye spice. All right, so we have to make some type of determination on these two. There are no such things as ties in life. There's always a number one and a number two, okay? We don't give away participation trophies on the Nightcap channel. And so, without further ado, the winner is, for me, Wild Turkey 101. Hands down, there's really no comparison for me. There's no comparison. Now the Maker's Mark is probably about $12 more, I think, or something like that. It's between 35, 38 bucks. The 101 is $23. We're mixing in value for price paid. However, even if we're just going off of the experience of the whiskey alone, the Wild Turkey 101 still wins. It is just a delicious bourbon, beautifully constructed. Like I said, all of the flavors in sync, in harmony. That's my go-to. It's just delicious. I can sit there and drink glass after glass and be totally satisfied. So, have you had both of these? Have you had the 101, the Maker's Mark 101? I know everybody is not a Maker's Mark fan, but you know, you just try different stuff. Let me know if you've tried these and what your opinion is. Who do you have coming out on top? Or if there's another 50.5 ABV whiskey that you know of that should be put in as a contender, let us know that too. All right, Whiskey Nightcaps, we are out, suckers.